Hey folks, Brian Blessing in Las Vegas. Thrilled to be with you, VegasInsider.com. And then there were four, or for our purposes, two games with the opening line report here at VegasInsider.com. It's championship week, and it's going to be something special. And we start with the NFC Championship game, 3:05 Eastern, with Tampa Bay at Lambeau Field up in Green Bay. Opening number, Green Bay -4. Total on the game is 51. Weather forecast a week out, 24 degrees and flurries. For what that's worth. We see on a dime how weather can change at Lambeau or in Western New York. We saw the wind kick up in the Bills-Ravens game. So, there's a buyer beware element to the weather forecast, and you check in on game day. But let's go to this Tampa Bay team. Tom Brady, he will be appearing in only his 14th championship game, conference championship game, albeit first in the NFC. The beauty for Brady here, as great as he's playing, the majority of those games were played up at Foxborough. This Tampa Bay team, they've gone on the road, and they're getting the job done. They had to work hard to beat Washington, but they went in to New Orleans, and their defense, led by Devin White, stole the show, forced 4 turnovers, maybe the end of an era for Drew Brees. The bottom line is, when you give Brady an opportunity, he capitalizes. They turn the turnovers into offense and to points, and they walk out of there with the 30-20 victory, and now they get the date up at Lambeau. These two teams played October 18th. It was in Week 6. 38-10 was the final score. A goofy game. Packers were up 10-0, and then the Bucs got 28 unanswered points. In the second quarter, Jamel Dean had a pick 6 in there. One of the rare times the Packers were just non-competitive. It was one of those quote-unquote bad days at the office. So the Packers will have that circle, a little revenge on their mind, but they know what the big prize is at stake here. But again, listen, this win for Tampa Bay in New Orleans, Fournette, Ronald Jones, efficient, not spectacular, but the offensive line may be the key, keeping Brady upright, running the ball, closing the game out when they can. As for Rodgers and the Pack, they get the win over a stingy Rams defense. Rodgers went 23 of 36, 2 touchdowns. He ran for one with that pretty cool pump fake. And Lazard showed up now and is becoming a more focal point of the offense. He had 4 catches for 96 yards. We know Devontae Adams is the monster. He had 9 catches, but only 66 yards. Did get a touchdown. But for Green Bay, talk about the level of depth. The running game now, Jones, Williams, and add Dillon, the rookie, to the mix. The total is 51. Lambeau Field for a conference championship game. Should be pretty good. There's a lot of love for Tom Brady. Let me tell you something. And we see that in the betting market. Rodgers, the likely MVP. I can see this number maybe come down a little bit. I don't know that it can get to 3. But I think 3.5 will pop up in there. The total will be a little sketchy because people will be leery about the weather, but that should be a fun matchup. Now, the veteran quarterbacks on display in that game. Then we get the question mark in the AFC Championship game. Kansas City gets the win over Cleveland, and they will entertain Buffalo, who beat the Ravens on Saturday night in ridiculously windy conditions. Josh Allen was solid, but it was about protecting the football. The defense for the Bills, this is the good news. As electric as their offense has been all year long, their defense is slowly getting back to what they had been in previous years, where they were a top 5 defense. The funny thing is, these two teams played October 19th. I have heard so many people talk about that first game. The Chiefs won it 26-17. Oh, they ran it down the Bills' throat. They stepped all over the Bills. They act like it was a blowout of massive proportions. 26-17 was the final. It's a great win for the Chiefs. It was a matinee game, if you remember, and it was a goofball short week. The Bills had to play Tennessee because that's when Tennessee was going through the COVID stuff, and the weather was bad. So the Chiefs did. They ran it down the Bills' throat. 26 carries for 161 yards. But the Bills would probably take that chance again because they had a chance in the fourth quarter, down 6, to get the ball back. Twice, they couldn't get Mahomes off the field on third down. One long pass, 3rd and 13, scramble for another first down on 3rd and 7. But if you put the ball in Josh Allen's hands with a chance to go down and win, the Bills would signed the paper for that today. The one thing nobody talks about in that first meeting, the Bills had lost their first game to Tennessee. They then lost in that short week, and they were preparing for both Tennessee and KC at that time. But what no one is talking about is Josh Allen hurt his shoulder a few weeks before in the game at the Raiders right here in Vegas. He left the field, he went to the locker room, he came back. The next 2 weeks, he was playing with a shoulder brace. He never made any excuse about it, but Allen was hurt in that game. And speaking of hurt, Patrick Mahomes. Wow. Wobbly as could be coming off the field. Henny, to his credit, helps them close out the game. Listen, it's the AFC Championship game. You've got to believe Mahomes will find a way to give it a go. First things first, protect him from himself. But, I mean, he's going to play. Hill and Kelsey were really, really strong again. Running game's a little sketchy now without Edwards-Helaire, and see what his health status will be. But the other thing to note, and everybody's thinking about the concussion, if you remember in the game with the Browns, I don't know if it was turf toe, but Mahomes was limping around all over the place. He hurt his big toe. And he had a little hitch in his giddy up. So Mahomes is banged up. But listen, the Super Bowl's on the line here. He's going to play. And we know how electric that offense can be. So here's the deal. At the Superbook at the Westgate, the game opened KC minus 2.5, minus $1.20. Total on the game, 54.5. The 2.5 didn't last long. Bets up to 3. That's where it resides. I spoke to our friends at Station Casino. They were kind of trying to figure out what's a number, a healthy Mahomes number. As the game was going on, I think it was like 4.5. KC was going to be favored. So I think this number that you're seeing what the market is kind of a meeting you halfway here. Not certain what Mahomes' status is going to be. Likely he plays, but how healthy will he be? The toe is another thing to consider. But this number sitting on 3 should generate incredible two-way action. The total in the game, 54.5. Arrowhead, the weather forecast, 43 degrees. It is a night game, so maybe down the high, right around 40, high 30s. Flurries and rain. A mix in the forecast a week out. Again, you can take that with a grain of salt because the weather at Arrowhead can change the drop of an eye. I'm telling you, this is the matchup I think a lot of people wanted to see. Allen and Mahomes, a lot of people were talking about that. 1 seed, 2 seed in the AFC. And then you get the veterans again. Brady outdueled Breeze. Now Brady gets his shot against Aaron Rodgers. A compelling weekend of football with storylines all over the place. And then it's down to the Super Bowl and a chance to get to Tampa Bay. It's been a fun season. We're down to the final 2 games. There's your opening line report for championship week in the National Football League. I'm Brian Blessing in Las Vegas.